So I was hoping maybe you could explain to some of the students, again, obviously now as CEO of Autodesk, but you actually started in the aerospace industry at Lockheed. And so I was hoping maybe you could talk a bit about that.
I actually started my journey at Lockheed as a co-op student that was through a program at my university. So basically the university had a program for, the students that were doing well to kind of connect with local industries and get summer internships. I think it's really important for students. Look, you know what? Your professors are there for a reason. They're not just there for you to listen to the lectures. They're actually a resource for you. Build a relationship with them. Ask them questions, show up to office hours, because you never know what, they might all of a sudden say, hey, do you know about this co-op program? No, I didn't know about the co-op program. Well, I think maybe you should look at this. And all of a sudden what happens is some, cascade where you had no network at all. Suddenly you've got an internship. And I knew nobody. I didn't know anybody at Lockheed. Nobody knew me.
As a student is like, how do you take that feedback, right? Because again, like you are aspirational and you're trying to do those things. And again, it takes time to learn the empathy muscle. And you might not have that right away of like,
Yeah.
What is this person telling me and why? So I was just curious about your own techniques of how you learn.
I think the way you paraphrase some of the things I said is that, the heroes in my life always told me what I needed to hear, not what I wanted to hear. And did I always hear it the first time? Absolutely not. Okay, absolutely not. I didn't always hear it the first time. What I had to learn over time, over a period of wash, rinse, repeat, and getting tough feedback, is that what? There's always a kernel of truth in every piece of feedback. It might not always be true, but you always have to be open to what the truth is. And if you hear feedback, even really harsh feedback, you try not to internalize it and you try not to take it personally. And you then ask yourself, okay, what's true in there and what's false? And if you're really good, and if you've spent time cultivating self-awareness, you're able to process what's true in that feedback and what isn't true in that feedback. But you've got to take the first step and ask yourself, what's true? What's true in that?
So I was, again, just curious of like, why is impact so crucial to satisfaction throughout your life? Regardless, I mean, obviously controlling somewhat for a reasonable salary, but like, within the variance.
I just wanted to do something that made me feel important and that I was doing good work and something was coming out of it. And I always followed that instinct. And when a young student comes up to me or an intern comes up to me and they say, I really want to be a CEO someday, I'm like, why? Okay. What are you chasing? What does that mean? What does a CEO mean to you? And often what it comes down to is money and power. And I'm sorry, you know what? If you spend your life chasing money, power, and status, you will find yourself at the end of that journey always never measuring up to what you wanted, because you'll always be comparing yourself to something that isn't inside here. And I don't think that's the path to a satisfying career or a satisfying life.
And then do you think that especially as a young professional, that you need to learn how to tell like an elevator pitch story that you can tell outside the world as you go to different places?
Look, if you want to lead effectively, you have to learn how to communicate effectively. Not everybody needs to be a leader. Some people will be individual contributors for the rest of their lives and they will have amazing, fulfilling, productive, and enhancing careers doing that. But if you want to lead, you have to learn to communicate. And very early on in my college career, there was a summer class on public speaking for engineers, right? And I took that very early on and really, really wanted to be a good communicator. And I also was inspired by people that were good communicators. And I think you can see in the world the impact that, bad communicators can have an impact, but they usually do it through manipulation. All right. And we can talk about, how you drive change effectively or not. Good communicators inspire people to action. And when you're leading large groups and large companies, stories inspire people to action.
A lot of times get this wrong between AI and ML. And even back in like 2018, 2019, you're saying, no, we're right now at machine learning. We're not quite yet at artificial intelligence, but I thought that was actually really poignant too. Like you guys were way ahead of that curve.
Look, multidisciplinary is the future. of almost every profession. Tech professions in particular. Is AI going to change the way programming is done? It absolutely is going to. Is it going to change the way product design is done? The idea of designing UIs is absolutely going to. You're going to see hybrid roles between product designers and engineers coming together, and people need to be able to cultivate strong critical thinking and strong system thinking skills to survive in the age where knowledge, frankly, gets commoditized. And AI is going to commoditize knowledge. Now, we all need to learn knowledge, because if you don't understand knowledge, you don't know what to do with it. But what makes us uniquely human? It's our ability to connect to other humans. It's our ability to think through complex systems that involve interactions with humans. Are AIs going to be able to do that someday? Maybe, probably. But are people still going to value the human aspects of those things? Absolutely. So to survive and thrive over the next 10, 20 years as AI tools become more prevalent and knowledge becomes more and more accessible to other people, you have to start cultivating this ability to look at things through multiple different perspectives and become a systems thinker. So if you're an engineer, you know what? Take a few lit classes. If you want to if you're an engineer and you want to get a double major in creative writing, maybe not a bad idea. Or a psychology, maybe not a bad idea.
Again, to wrap us up, because it's been fascinating and a lot of fun, but again, can you just maybe give a few notes on kind of that early career talent and how you see that coming into Autodesk and the kind of those opportunities that might be available to them as they come into the company?
Yeah. So look, just like internships were important to my early career, we think internships are a really important path for bringing in early career talent. Because they get to understand the company and understand what the company is about and kind of test drive the company before they commit to it. And let's face it, there are generational differences, and thank God there's generational differences. All right, that's the whole cycle of refresh, renew, and grow. There needs to be generational differences, and you need to make room for those generational differences. But you also need to be able to manage the conflicts that arise from that. I'm managing a company that, has at least 4, maybe 5 different generations in it right now. All right. And they all have very differing worldviews. And you have to create a climate where all of those generations can come together and work together in a way for the common mission of the company, regardless of whether they agree or disagree on everything. So that element that sounds so soft is very much a part of getting the most out of every generation so that you get the best possible outcome. Because the older generations have deeper knowledge about certain things that need to be done. The newer generation has newer ideas about ways that we could do things differently. You want all of that to work together. And if you swing the pendulum too hard to any one of those points of view, you lose the collective intelligence of merging all of those views together into some kind of really constructive outcome. And that's part of the formula for bringing in new talent, is making sure they can have impacts on the vectors that they have, but also making sure that they can have empathy for, the boomers.
Well, I think to your point, and it drops up, I think that's the compromise, right? So I can't thank you enough on sharing that. Like, the compromise of the workforce, the generations, they're working together, is all about compromising between the generations.
It's all about getting the best ideas from the collective consciousness that you create. And that collective consciousness has to be mixed with all sorts of things, all sorts of races, creeds, colors, beliefs, ages. This is how you kind of get to best. All right. And, is that a harder environment to manage? Hell yes, it is. All right. Is it more valuable in terms of the outcomes it produced rather than monolithic thinking in any kind of you bet it is. And it's worth the hard work.